So as far as we know, the 40-minute communication delay between Earth and Mars has serious implications on how the crew aboard a mission to Mars will actually manage any emergencies that will come up during the mission. They'll have to handle any immediate emergencies completely independently. So now as far as technical emergencies go, we won't exactly know how to handle them until the technology for them is actually developed. And there's not at this point, so we just don't know what we're talking about. What we can think about and plan ahead for now is how to handle medical emergencies in space. But the problem with this is that NASA has a limited capacity to actually anticipate the medical problems that will be encountered on a mission to Mars. They have some really good and thorough evidence and estimates based on past missions to the ISS, but the fact is we just haven't been in space long enough or deep enough to know the unique consequences that might come up during long duration missions. And so then we ask, well, how can we best prepare for managing medical emergencies? And then there's the question of, do we bring a doctor? There's actually an interesting study that's been done on preparing crew for managing medical emergencies. And during this experiment, the experimenters presented a group of hand-picked participants with a list of 30 medical events and asked them to evaluate them on certain criteria. The participants were all picked based on their expertise in certain aspects of space exploration, and the medical events themselves were picked from a list made by NASA that contains the most probable events that would have significant impact on mission success and might actually occur on long-duration missions. The results of the study are shown here. So on the left we have the list of the medical conditions themselves, and on the bottom scale there we have an analog scale of the effect that non-technical skills would have on the medical conditions, on the outcome of the medical conditions listed there on the left. So on the left we have, at the bottom, on the bottom we have maximum impact on the outcome of the medical condition there on the left. And then towards the right, we have little to no impact on the outcome of the medical condition. And the main takeaway from this graph is that the participants said that the non-technical skills would have a significant impact on pretty much all of the listed medical events, right? We see a left skew in almost every single one of these events. And these skills, the non-technical skills, are mainly clear communication updates, managing competing priorities, leadership and fellowship, and the ability to provide clear status updates and the like. Up at the top, we have things like choking, we have sudden cardiac arrest, we have chest injury, we have seizure, we also have things like blood loss. Further down, they even include things like head injury, and even dislocated shoulders, or a spinal fracture. And now some of these, like decompression sickness and toxic exposure, actually have a decent chance of actually coming up on Mars. And so this clearly shows that non-technical skills will have a significant impact on handling emergencies up in space, specifically deep space. And this gives us a hope that we can really provide the crew with training that will really help them to manage these kinds of events, even in the absence of a doctor. And so that brings us back to the original question, right? Do we actually bring a doctor? Because bringing a doctor means either replacing a more relevant crew member or bringing the extra supplies that an extra crewmate entails if we decide to keep the original number and add an extra doctor. And then there's the possibility of adding, if you're doing the buddy system, of adding 2 more crew members and the extra supplies that entails. So we have Robert Zubrin's plan, right? Mars Direct. And that specifically claims that bringing a doctor would be a waste of resources. And more than that, he says that bringing one would lower crew morale, simply because astronauts have just historically hated doctors. And this is well documented on all of the Apollo missions. On the other hand, NASA's current design reference architecture 5.0 does include doctor. And so studies like these will help us to construct a more informed decision on this matter. And it really brings to light that while we're really focused right now on the technical challenges that come with going to Mars, skills like the ones described in the study are critically important and have a real tangible effect on the mission's success. And again, these can be skills that are non-technical in nature. Studies like these can and will shape this type of training that the crews on the Mars missions will receive so that they can manage as wide a range of scenarios as possible. So at the end of the day, we can confidently send humans to Mars and back again to Earth during our lifetime.